fellow constitutionalists. Welcome to the Thursday edition of the Dan Clement Show, a Christian political talk show. This is episode 817. I'm your host, Dan Clement, your constitutional warrior fighting for your right just to be an American. It is June 8th in the year of our Lord 2017. Remember, we are a hyphen-free, PC-free zone. God is still in control and he does love you. I'm broadcasting live from the Hemlock Studios here in the beautiful central Susquehanna Valley in the great Keystone State. And I was trying to, I got everything reset up, and I'm still hitting somewhat of a CPU barrier on my main computer. And I had to stop recording with my OBS. I'm still trying to figure out, there's supposed to be a way I can record the show using the processors on my GPU rather than going through the CPU. So the graphics, using the graphics card over the regular processor. So I see a little buffering that was going on there. So I'm just going to take the chance that everything is working, and I'm going to be able to get this off on the show. It looks like everything on the live stream is working. What I actually did, and this is something I'll continue to do for a while, is I brought my laptop back up and set it up where my third monitor used to be. And so I can monitor the show up there. I can also go over and check out the YouTube as far as the chat room, so I have the live chat up in there. So neither computer is actually working too hard right now. Everything's working good on the broadcast computer, and everything looks good on the streaming computer. The only thing, I did have a chat room up in Blog Talk Radio, but for some reason it did not want to work. And so hopefully everybody knows it by now that we're actually over here at the live stream chat room at YouTube. And this is something that maybe what I should do is just put up another little thing on down here, something saying live chat at YouTube. Now on XSplitter, I could have put that up as a screen capture and used that. And I've been trying to get XSplitter to work, but that's even worse for my CPU. Now the XSplitter does use GPU resources, but it's actually, when I had nothing but XSplitter on the machine working, it didn't. It still used 100% of my CPU. So this is an older CPU. It's probably 3 or 4 years old. It's a quad core AMD, but it's an older one. Now AMD's bringing out a new one comparable to the i7 Intel. So my thoughts are, what we're going to be ending up doing, and this is something that's probably going to be down the road a little ways further, because I got too many computers I'm trying to handle by myself. I need someone with me here during the show to actually operate a couple of the computers. I got to do something here, folks, real quick. I'm not using my big headphones anymore while producing the program. I'm actually using a set of over-the-ear because this time of year, this time of year my ear's sweating, two, I can hear the show better and I don't have these big clunky things on. I still have the microphone in front of me, and that's okay. My t-shirt today is a Boy Scout shirt. Let me show it to you. Camp Brûlée. We used to take the boys up every other year. We go to a different summer camp, Boy Scout summer camp, other than what the district was actually putting out. And I just want to do something up here on my other computer. I know it's not going to slow anything down. James Comey has already testified. I'm pretty sure I'm just looking up here. He's already testified. I'm just looking to see what he said. Helped reveal details of his private conversation with President Trump because he thought doing so would spur the appointment of a special counsel to investigate the administration. A remarkable. I got to read all through that. I'm not exactly sure, and it's from the Washington Post. I don't use sources from CNN unless it's something that, like, I have a montage I want to play for you this morning. and it's due to credibility factors. They've lost all credibility with me as far as I'm concerned. They really have. And it's important to understand that if they lose credibility, that's on them. It's not on me. And it's, I'm going to turn the autofocus off on this camera because that's bugging me. Credibility is like respect. It has to be earned. Now, they're being part of the press. They have a certain amount of credibility, but they have to build on that. And if they don't, or they damage your credibility, that's on them. It's not on guys like me that point these things out. It's their fabricating fake news, their narratives that are not based in fact. I have a couple articles in here. We're going to talk about that today. Cable news is obsessed with this word from the James Comey written testimony, which I have a link to that PDF, and I read that last night. As soon as I found it, I read it. As soon as I heard about it, I downloaded the PDF. I have it in my, it'll be in the show notes page. Real quick note, because of all the work I've been doing on my videos this week, the show notes page has suffered. I will have that caught up this afternoon while I am uploading videos to YouTube. I have everything recorded. I have to render one video. I had the recording stuff way too high. Instead of having like a 4 megabit video file for an hour, it actually doubled, and I don't want to upload that, so I'm trying to reduce that down by re-rendering it. So, Lord willing, the creeks don't rise, I'll be caught up today, okay? Let's see, what do I want to go here? All right, let's go to the Sears Parts Direct. If you are the handyman around the house, and you have a honey-do list, and it involves fixing machinery, whether it's power machinery used outside or whether it's machinery your wife uses inside, and that sometimes is more important, and you can't find the parts locally, my suggestion to you is instead of trying to find them locally and running around making phone calls and trying to find these things, go to your computer, go to the danclemenshow.com and click on the Sears Parts Direct widget. And when you get on there, find your part. Do what I do. I take my smartphone with me and I snap a picture of the plate, whether it's, the serial and the model number and everything, and then I can just bring it up in a picture, which is great. You can focus in on it, get the numbers off, put it in there, find your part, and then when you go to checkout, put in offer code 9005. It'll give you a 10% off of your lawn equipment, parts of your lawn equipment. I put a new igniter on my LP gas stove for the oven, and it was great. I got the 10% discount off. The part fit. I didn't have to fabricate anything, and everything was all good with that. So if you're the handyman and you're fixing things around the house, do not sweat it as far as where you're going to get your parts, because you can get them at Sears Part Direct. And you just go over to the danclemenshow.com and pick that up. I have to play this. I wanted to play this at the top of the show. Well, I'll tell you what, let me get through my other stuff here real quick, and I'll play this video. I'm kind of anxious to play this, and I played it before on the show, but I actually have it set up where I can play it through OBS, which is a lot better than trying to capture the desktop, because now I only have two desktops, and I can manipulate it better this way. Today's daily Bible reading comes from 1 Corinthians chapter 12, verses 7 through 11. But the manifestations of the Spirit is given to each one for the profit of all. For to one is given the word of wisdom through the Spirit, to another the word of knowledge through the same Spirit, to another faith by that same Spirit, to another gifts of healing by that same Spirit, and another the workings of miracles, to another prophecy, to another discerning of spirits, and to another different kinds of tongues, to another the interpretation of tongues. But one and the same Spirit works all these things, distributing to each one individually as he wills. Now this is Paul, the Apostle Paul, laying out his argument for the miraculous indwelling of the Holy Spirit. And he's building up this argument, and if you read through chapter 12, 13, and 14, and focus at the end of chapter 13, you'll see where Paul's actually talking about that there's going to be a day coming soon that this miraculous indwelling of the Holy Spirit will leave. When the perfect is come, that which is in part will go away, and that's what we're talking about here. And but the one thing I really want you to look at in this list of gifts, There's no differentiation between who gets these. Doesn't say only men get them. Doesn't say only women get them. Doesn't say only white people get them. Doesn't say black. Doesn't have anything to do with race or ethnicity or anything. It's about your relationship with God, and especially if the apostles laid their hands on you. The apostles had these, and they were bestowed on them through the miraculous indwelling of the Holy Spirit. And the apostles, through laying on the hands, were able to impart these gifts to those who laid on the hands. But the people that they laid their hands on weren't able to continue to pass that down, as it were. Today's quote meal is from John Milton. We read not that Christ ever exercised force but once. And that was to drive profane ones out of his temple, not to force them in. And there, again, is a huge difference between Christianity and Islam. There really is. Today's short Bible lesson, I think this is a good one. It's a little bulletin article by Mike Riley over at gewatkins.net. That little word, but, B-U-T. It's a good little article. I encourage you to go over and read that. Please go to thedanclemenshow.com and read that over there. All right, I have actually two videos, but I want to show this first one. It's that song. I think I shared it a couple weeks ago when I first got it out, and it's a montage. Not a montage, but someone took a bunch of the different things that Comey said and put it to music, and I thought it was fantastic. I really did. So let me put this fair use up here, and then we'll go right over into the video.
Good morning. I'm here to give you an update on the FBI's investigation of Secretary Clinton. What I want to do is tell you what we're recommending. But first, let me tell you what we found. 110 emails, 52 email chains have been determined to contain classified information.
What difference at this point does it make?
8 of those chains are top secret, 36 of those chains secret, and 8 contain confidential information.
What difference at this point does it make?
Everything I did was permitted. There was no law, no regulation.
Secretary Clinton should have known that an unclassified system was no place for that conversation.
I did not email any classified material to anyone on my email.
None of these emails should have been on any kind of classified system, not even Gmail.
First of all, nothing was marked classified.
To the contrary,
Nothing was marked classified.
there is evidence of
Nothing was
tremendous
marked classified.
Now let me tell you what we found. 110
It was
emails,
not the best choice.
52 email
It was
chains
a mistake.
have been determined to contain classified information.
What difference at this point does it make?
8 of those chains are top
It was the
secret,
best choice.
6 of those chains
I thought
secret,
it was a mistake.
and 8 contain confidential information.
What difference at this point does it make?
With respect to our recommendation, this is going to be an unusual statement in at least a couple of ways. Although there is evidence, our judgment is that no reasonable prosecutor would bring such a case. I know there will be intense public debate. I know there will be intense public debate. I know there will be intense public debate. What difference at this point does it make? 110
It
emails,
wasn't the best choice.
52 email
I made
chains
a mistake.
have been determined to contain classified information.
What difference at this point does it make?
8 of those chains are top
Not a
secret,
good choice.
6 of those chains
I said it was a
secret,
mistake.
and 8 contain confidential information.
What difference at this point does it make?
Been authorized by the Department of Justice to confirm that the FBI, as part of our counterintelligence mission, is investigating the Russian government's efforts to interfere in the 2016 presidential election.
Fired. All right, now they had a little thing at the end there where President Trump said, "You're fired." And like I said, I've been trying to go through this. Like I said, I don't like using sources, for me anyway, that have no credibility. And I was going to try to look up Fox News and see what they had, because everything on Google News, and this is this is something I don't like about Google News. And let me see if I can find something else on here. you see Western journalism, they're a pretty good outlet for news and everything like that, and see what they have to say. Comey accuses Trump administration of lie. I'm so sorry that the FBI workforce had to hear them. Like I said, I'm going to have to go over all this for today. I'll have a good report for you tomorrow because I'll be working on this probably after I get done mowing the grass. I'll be working on this the rest of the day because it's just one of those things. And I have to look up because my laptop monitor is up a little higher than the rest of my stuff. Now, yesterday the PDF came out of what James Comey was going to testify about. I read through it. And I knew what the anti-freedom groups were going to say. They were going to glob onto this, that these are impeachable offenses. And I have a montage from all the places that you'd want to get a montage. The Huffington Post, okay? And I thought it was good. It was really slanted against Donald Trump, but I thought, and this is one of these things that Rush Limbaugh pointed out years ago about the coordination in the lamestream media when it comes to these type of things. It's like someone put a meme out or put a memo out saying, use this cloud, do the term this cloud, okay? And so give this, let me do the fair use again. Let me get this set up for you.
On the morning of March 30th, the president called me at the FBI. He described the Russia investigation as a, quote, cloud.
The president described the Russian matter as a cloud.
That there's this cloud.
The president talked to him about a cloud.
The president apparently talks about a cloud. This whole cloud, this notion of the cloud.
If there's this cloud swirling, and
he's concerned about a cloud.
If you're under this cloud, the cloud was getting in the way.
The cloud was getting in the way.
The cloud was getting in his way of his ability to do his job.
The cloud is still hanging over my head, but what he's really talking about is a cloud over his own personal head.
He wants to know what we can do to lift this cloud. He asked what we could do to, quote, lift the cloud.
Lift the cloud.
Lift the cloud. Lift the cloud. Lift the cloud.
Lift the cloud.
Lift the cloud.
Lift the cloud.
Lift the cloud.
Lift the cloud.
Lift the cloud.
Lift the cloud.
Lift the cloud.
Going back to this word, the cloud.
And he talks about the cloud. You see that portion?
Yeah.
Go
ahead.
Can you pick up there?
Well, you go ahead.
Wow, so he finished by stressing the cloud.
Sense his frustration. This is a cloud hanging over my administration.
A kind of a cloud hanging over his administration. President thinks it appropriate to go to his FBI director and say, this cloud over my head.
The president keeps calling him back about this cloud. Well, it's his cloud. It's like, what is it in Peanuts? He walks around with a cloud over his
the
head.
guy with the dirt.
Big Ben walks around with that little cloud over his head.
All right, so the memo went out, hits the cloud over his head, and the one lady likened him to Pigpen on Peanuts. And the one lady in there in blue was saying, well, it's a cloud over his personal head. No, this isn't a cloud over his personal head, folks. That is just not the case. It is a cloud over the whole administration, because how long has this charade been going on? Or charade, depending on how you want to pronounce it. It's tomato. But how long has this charade been going on? How long does it take to investigate something? You have the most powerful investigative agency in the world, as far as I'm concerned, in the FBI. And why is it taking so long to investigate this? And it is putting a cloud over his administration. Do you think that the talking heads in the lamestream media would have let this pass if this would have happened in the beginning of President Barack Obama's administration, where all of a sudden he's come under an FBI investigation? These guys would be screaming to the rooftops and the rafters and blowing the roof off their building because they screamed so bad about this needs to get over so he can get on with the agenda of the people. So there's always been a double standard as far as bias in the lamestream media, and it hasn't stopped. I mean, it's still going on today, folks. And this is something that we need to dig into, and there has to be an investigation going on. There has to be. However, I read that statement that James Comey said. Nowhere in that statement does James Comey pen, and let me back up a second. This is just what James Comey remembers and how he put it down in his conversations. He said he never did this with President Obama. And he said it was his habit to write things down after he talks with folks so he can keep it clear, but he didn't do it with President Obama. So there's another double standard that's going on there. But at no time in Comey's statement, in his recollection, did President Trump tell him to shut down this investigation so they can get rid of this cloud. And basically, all he was asking about was, hurry up and get this investigation over. He didn't tell him. He didn't try to steer it. Yesterday, the heads of the different security apparatuses that we have here in the United States, none of them said they were coerced by President Trump to stop the investigation. In James Comey's own words in his statement, no, he didn't pressure me. Now, some people in the anti-freedom groups out there said just by the president asking about it, asking if he can do something to lift this cloud, telling him that that Michael Flynn's a good guy, and then talk about loyalty. And I knew as soon as I read those statements in there, I believe that James Comey took that the wrong way. One of the men were saying, this is unheard of. Him talking to the FBI director. And at one point, towards the end of the 7-page PDF, James Comey did tell the President of the United States that there is a chain of command and that he needs to go through the one request. He said, well, this is better to go through the AG, Attorney General, and have it go down that way. And there is a chain of command, but that still doesn't mean that the President of the United States can't directly ask somebody in his chain of command below him questions and sit down and talk with him. If there was something, in my mind, James Comey seems like I won't say credible, but an honorable man. And I believe at any time, if there was something that President Donald Trump said that crossed the line into illegality, I honestly believe that James Comey would have stopped him right there and said, sir, what you're asking me to do is against the law, and you need to take this up with the Attorney General, excuse himself, and leave. But at no time did that happen. No time did James Comey ever say that. These folks out here, I have an article over here by Matthew Raza over at Salon. Comey testimony reveals something that hasn't been seen since Watergate, and we'll get into that in a little bit. But again, that article, well, you know what? While I mentioned it, why don't I bring it up right now? Former FBI Director James Comey, this was posted today, this morning. Official statement may include enough information to pursue an obstruction of justice investigation against President Donald Trump, according to several legal experts. And let me read down through this. As a CNN senior legal analyst, Jeffrey Tobin, put it, there is a criminal investigation going on of one of the president's top associates. He gets fired. He's under investigation. The president brings the FBI director and says, please stop your investigation. He did not tell him that at any time. That is, you look that up. It's not in that transcript. Please stop your investigation. He said, this is a good guy. Can we, he's an honorable guy. James Comey agreed with him. He says, is there anything we can do to get this moved along? And Tobin added, if that isn't obstruction of justice, I don't know what is. Well, Mr. Tobin, if that isn't a bunch of horsepucky, you reading into a statement and going away with your own ideas on that, then I don't know what is horsepucky. Okay? Meanwhile, Philip Allen LaCavera, who served as counsel to the Watergate Special Prosecutors Archibald Cox and Leon Jaworski, wrote in the Washington Post that the attempted interference in the Russian investigation outlined by Comey has not been seen, to my knowledge, since the days of Richard Nixon and Watergate. Again, if you read his statement, and the link will be up in the show notes page, I'll have this on my show notes page caught up this afternoon, or you can just go PDF it, Google it and find the PDF. Nowhere in there. These guys are reading this stuff into that thing, and again, CNN and the Washington Post have credibility issues. along with the Washington Times, or not Washington Times, the New York Times, the Atlantic now, and the Atlantic Constitutional, LA Times, they all have credibility issues. Almost all the press in the lamestream media have credibility issues. And this is a huge issue. And this is something that they're going to have to work years, I would say, to get back the credibility they once had. And so this goes on in this article. After noting that both Director of National Intelligence Dan Coats and National Security Agency Director Mike Rogers were unable to say that Trump hadn't asked them to interfere in the Russian investigation, LaCabra wrote that, leaving little doubt about the price of continued retention, the president twice, according to Comey, told him he expected loyalty from Comey just as he did from anybody else around him. And folks, in light of all the leaking, in light of all the work that the deep state in his administration and in government in general have been working against Donald Trump, don't you think there are some loyalty issues there? And I heard commentators say, well, you know, we're loyal to the Constitution, not the president. The president is a post created by the Constitution. He heads the executive branch. There has to be a certain amount of loyalty there. As long, and the thing is, folks, if you look up loyalty in the dictionary, as long as that loyalty is earned and deserved. If the president crosses a legal line, and so far I don't think he has, I could be totally wrong about that, but everything I've seen, he hasn't, including the emoluments. And I said this before on the show, and I've actually put this in chat rooms on Twitter and Facebook and elsewhere, and asked them, did George Washington, Jefferson, Adams, most of the founding fathers who became, or framers who had subsequently became president, still own business interests and still ran the businesses? Are you going to go back and sanction them because you think somebody like Donald Trump violated the emoluments clause when you don't even really know what it is? You hear these people talk and they don't really know what the emoluments clause is, and we did a program not too long ago on that, and people need to go do some research on that. So we have guys like Matthew Rosa over at Salon that are relying on sources that are not credible to fashion his piece, his story around. And like I said, these folks are reading a lot into that memo, that 7-page testimony of James Comey. So, okay, let's see here. 5 things you need to know about the Comey statement. This is by Joshua Yasma over at Daily Wire. And let me get that open. And I'm not going to read everything. I'm just going to read the bold parts on the 5 statements. This was posted yesterday. I don't know why I got 7-7 in there. It should be 6-7 as far as the date. The Senate Intelligence Committee has released a transcript of former FBI Director James Comey's open statement ahead of his hearing Thursday. The statement is 7 pages and has already been dissected by overzealous Beltway pundits with predictable eagerness. The Daily Wire has reviewed the statement with clear-eyed scrutiny, so you don't have to. Here are the 5 things you need to know about the Comey testimony. 1, Comey said that he never felt pressured by President Trump with regard to the overall Russian-Trump campaign collusion investigation. Trump never tried to actively block investigation or obstruct justice, according to the FBI director. In effect, the FBI was able to move forward with the investigation in a routine way. And that's exactly what was stated in that, too. Comey corroborated recent reporting suggesting that Trump demanded a loyalty pledge from him, and he did. He said, I expect people that are around me to be loyal to me. You know, and if I hire people, I'm sorry, if I hire people in my company here, and eventually I hope to do that, I hope they're loyal to me. I hope they're loyal to my idea and my vision of what I want this channel to be, what I want additional websites to eventually be. I hope they're loyal to me, because if they're not, I don't need them. I don't want them to be a yes man or yes woman. I just want a little fidelity and loyalty from them, that they're not going to stab me in the back, smile in my face and stab me in the back. And it seems like there's a lot of backstabbing going on right now in the executive branch with unappointed and appointed officials. Some of them, and I'm serious, folks. I think after what happened to Trump now, I think if he does go 8 years and the next president gets in there, I would, even though let's say it's Mike Pence, let's say Mike Pence ran for president after Donald Trump's 8 years, even if I was Mike Pence, I think I'd still go through and clean out the executive branch as far as officials and matter of fact, even just staffers that are hired by the government, by the government for that purpose. So number 3. Comey said that Trump wanted him to expedite the FBI investigation because it was placing a cloud over his administration and affected his abilities to make good deals for America. Now, I just want to read this one real quick here. This account aligns neatly with what we know about Trump's obsession with the public image and his refrain of making good deals. Trump finished by stressing the cloud that was interfering with the ability to make deals for the country and said, I hoped I could find a way to get out of that he wasn't being investigated. Comey says, recalling March 30 phone call with the president. And the president himself was not being investigated. Comey said that. 4th, Comey suggested that he was weary of Trump after their first meeting. And eventually he said that he should go through his chain of command, which I'm a former military guy. I'm a veteran. I believe in the chain of command. And finally, 5, Comey said that many of his conversations with Trump, particularly those about Flynn, made him feel deeply uncomfortable due to the perception that the president appeared to be encroaching on the independence of the FBI. And I have to stress, appear to be encroaching. At no time did he tell him to stop the investigation. He just wanted to get it over. How long do you have to investigate? I mean, you're one of the most, if not the most powerful investigative force in the world, the FBI, and you're taking this long? I find that kind of suspicious myself, and I don't know if they're protecting somebody or some buddies, and I don't, honestly, in my opinion, I don't think the protection would be in the Republican Party. I think they might be protecting somebody over on the Democrat side of the aisle. So that's some takeaways with what you need to know about James Comey and his testimony. And again, you're going to see a lot of articles out there that are still based on fabricated fake news and assumptions and anonymous sources that are repeating an anonymous source that heard something else from an anonymous source that heard something from the janitor or some guy in the toilet. That, to me, those stories there should have never made print, whether actual paper print, and they never should have been posted on the internet. That is, to me, that's bad journalism if you can't confirm things. I understand about keeping confidential sources confidential. But the problem is, especially when you're talking about politics, especially when you're talking about this, if all you're doing is using anonymous sources and they are never corroborated, which they haven't been. They have never been confirmed. None of these Russian stories have been confirmed yet. Like I said, I'm working on some outdated information here because I didn't get a chance to see the testimony, or even I wanted to try to record it, but I was busy getting set up for the show in here, making sure everything worked and making sure it's all getting put out on the internet during my live stream here. So I'm frustrated with the whole lamestream apparatus and everything that they're doing out there. It's amazing to me how they have any credibility at all. How they've maintained the level of credibility they have is amazing to me. I mean, nobody should be trusting them, and yet there's so much ink, real and digital, that has been spilt on this stuff. It makes my head swim. All right, let me see if I missed anything here. Oh yes, This is another story here from the Washington Post. Top intelligence official told Associate that Trump asked him if he could intervene with Comey on FBI Russian probe. This by Adam Entous, Entous, of Washington Post, posting on the 6th of June here. The nation's top intelligence officer told associates in March that President Trump asked him if he could intervene with the then FBI Director James Comey to get the Bureau to back off its focus on former National Security Advisor Michael Flynn in this Russian probe, according to officials. On March 22nd, less than a week after being confirmed by the Senate, Director of National Intelligence Daniel Coats attended a briefing at the White House together with officials from several government agencies. At this briefing, as his briefing was wrapping up, Trump asked everyone to leave except for Coats and CIA Director Mike Pompeo. The president then stated, how do they know? It's an anonymous source. They could be making this stuff up. And again, this is being posted in the Washington Post, which in my mind has no credibility. They've used up and wasted their credibility with all the fabricated fake news that they've been putting in online and in actual print. The president then stated or started complaining about the FBI's investigation and Comey handling of it, said officials familiar with the account Coates gave to associates. 2 days earlier, Comey had confirmed in a congressional hearing that the Bureau was probing whether Trump campaign coordinated with Russia during 2016 race. And I don't think that's in dispute. What's in dispute is being able to confirm all these private meetings, okay? After the encounter, Coates discussed this conversation with other officials and decided that intervening with Comey, as Trump had suggested, would be inappropriate, according to officials who spoke on condition of anonymity to discuss the sensitive internal matters. The events involving Coates show that the president went further than just asking intelligence officials to deny publicly the existence of any evidence showing collusion during the 2016 election, as the Washington Post reported in May. The interaction with Coates indicates that Trump's aim to enlist top officials to have Comey curtail the Bureau's probe. And we saw yesterday in these testimonies at no time, they all testified at no time were they pressured by President Obama to do anything illegal or obstruct justice or anything. So again, the Washington Post is using anonymous sources, and the information that they're getting cannot be confirmed, because Coates, even after he gave some of this information to associates, may have not told them everything. We don't know. We don't know. But Coates yesterday said he didn't do anything. He didn't do anything. So again, it amazes me how these people just get away with fabricating this stuff. And people still take it as gospel. And again, folks, where you get your information is important. How you get your information is important. And in my mind, now I'll still read their articles to see what they're saying, but in my mind, folks like CNN and other outlets, like I said, they just don't have any credibility in my mind. They've squandered it all. And it's going to take a long time for them to get that built back up. Now, they don't see it. CNN, they think they're doing God's work over there. Same as Washington Post and the New York Times. Oh, we're doing God's work. We got to defeat this guy. And again, I want to reverse it around. What would they be saying if the Republicans were going after President Obama in his first term after he was inaugurated, at the same intensity with the same amount of fake news? Is there a double standard there? Absolutely, there's a double standard there. There's no question in my mind that there's a double standard there. So again, you got to ask the question, what are your sources? What are your sources? And I trust sources like the Daily Wire because they have earned that credibility. They've earned that respect from me because they source out or they reference their material, and you go read these references that they have, and as far as I've been able to read, they don't use anonymous sources. Maybe I'm missing. I don't read every article that they put out, but the ones I share with you, I don't see anything in there other than maybe talking about a Washington Post or New York Times article where they do use anonymous sources, but the tenor of the article usually doesn't agree with those anonymous sources. All right, we got about 20 minutes left here. Need to wet my whistle. I'm doing a lot of talking today. Okay. Let me see here. Oh, I do want to get into this one because this sort of ties everything up, and then I'll move on to some other news. I have some updates on some news. I shared a video earlier in the week where it was talking about eminent domain out in Texas. This is a Daily Caller article by Rachel Stosfoods. She's a reporter for them. This was posted on yesterday on the 7th. The Washington Post takes anonymous sourcing to a whole new level. And folks, this is a really good article here. The entire basis of a big Washington Post report on President Trump's involvement in the FBI Russia investigation is at best a third-hand account from anonymous officials of a conversation that happened almost 3 months ago. Okay? The scoop is a big one, if true. Adam Antis, and that's, I read his article first to read this one, reports Trump asked top intelligence officials to persuade former FBI Director James Comey to shift the focus of the Russian investigation away from then Security Advisor Mike Flynn. Such an ask from Trump would solidify the narrative he has improperly interfered with the Russia investigation and that he fired Comey because he didn't like what he was, how he was handling it. But the sourcing here is dubious. Antis attributes the information to officials familiar with the account Coates gave to associates. Let's look at how far this account had to travel to get to Antis at the Washington Post, assuming the conversation actually happened, and none of those present have confirmed this. Okay? Trump has a private conversation with Coates and Pompeo. Coates discussed the contents of that conversation with some associates who either do or do not have an official capacity. Antis never specifies. Those associates in turn relay what is now a secondhand account to some officials. At this point, we're playing a game of telephone through likely politically motivated sources. In other words, they're because of their bias, they're going to change the message that they pass on. Okay? Let me see here. I'm just trying to get down. I lost my place where we're at. What exactly does Antis mean by associate here? Are these other high-ranking intelligence officials, former officials, Coates' favorite staffers? The guy who does this dry cleaning? And what bar does a source have to meet to be considered familiar with an account of an account? The wording in the report seems deliberately vague, perhaps in order to lend the report greater credence, perhaps to justify protected sources. We don't know. Antis has previously demonstrated willingness to run with a big Russia scoops before thoroughly vetting the facts. He and a colleague reported Russia hacked the U.S. power grid in December, but the story turned out to be totally false. When the electric company which had been contacted quickly revealed that the hack had nothing to do with the U.S. electrical grid and may not even occurred, and there's a link in there, so they were reporting on this without even confirmation. I don't know how a news editor lets them get away with this. In another big Russian hacking story on the CIA conclusion regarding interference, Antis and his colleagues cited one anonymous source with only secondhand knowledge of the matter. The source was cited as a U.S. official who was briefed on the presentation the CIA gave senators. Essentially, a person who was briefed on a brief. This is another game of telephone and falls well below what used to be the standard bar for journalism. Two sources with first-hand knowledge of the story. Antis is also at the center of more recent Washington Post reports on Russia interference that is founded on an anonymous letter. The paper was refused to publish. The story is another big scoop that Jared Kushner wanted a secret channel for Trump to communicate with Russia ahead of taking office, but no one has independently verified the existence or content of the letter that formed the basis of the scoop. And the Washington Post has not explained why editors have refused to publish the letter. In each of these examples, Entis and his editors ignore what used to be standard rules of journalism for the sake of quickly publishing big scoops that play nicely into the media big Russian narrative. The big Russian bear is going to attack us through our electoral process. And let's see here. Fox News, for its part, quoted an anonymous official saying it wasn't Kushner, but Kislyak, who suggested the back channel. Establishment media quickly pounced on the single source story. Oddly, nobody seemed to notice Fox source claimed to be in the room at the time of the exchange. Okay? And Entis explicitly connects the dots for the reader in the latest scoop between Trump allegedly trying to shut down the investigation and suspicions he and his campaign colluded with Russia to win the 2016 election. The events involving Coach show the president went further than just asking intelligence officials to deny publicly the existence of any evidence showing a collusion during the 2016 election, as the Washington Post reported in May. Entis writes, the interaction with Coates indicates that Trump aimed to enlist top officials to have Comey curtail the Bureau's probe. But not once in the story does Entis so much as mention it as yet no evidence Trump or his campaign colluded with Russia, despite what was already been largely or lengthy FBI investigation. And this is what I'm talking about. This investigation has been so lengthy. What in the world's going on? Why is it taking so long to get this information to the proper authorities if there is something there? And in my mind, I think they're just chasing leads down rabbit holes. You know, they got to investigate all the leads, but they're not leading them anywhere, and they got to exhaust all these leads before they can make a report. And quite honestly, every time one of these news sources in the lamestream media reports and publishes a fabricated fake news story, you got to think the FBI's got to take them serious, because maybe they do have a source. So they got to investigate that. And I think it's a coordinate, my opinion, I don't have evidence of this, just like when Reality Winner was arrested, I was telling folks I think that was a part of a mole hunt, and we don't know yet. And it may not come out for years, but like I said, it may be a part of a mole hunt that fed into the Russia hysteria. And that's why The Intercept published what they did without really confirming anything. And the same way with the lamestream media now. I think there's such a blizzard of fake fabricated news stories coming out, it's intended to swamp the FBI investigation. And I could be totally wrong about that, but you know what? It just seems that way to me. You know, I'm just spitballing here, but it seems that way to me. Alrighty, let me see here. Let me make sure I didn't miss anything up in the top here. I got like a little over 2 pages of links here that I got to put out. Oh yeah, I was going to share this story. Fast and Furious hearing rips Holder, DOJ for deception and gun running scandal by William Junesi and Andrew O'Reilly over Fox News. They had a video I was watching earlier downstairs on my laptop. When I came up here to record the video to share it with you on the show, it was no longer available. So I don't know what happened about it being taken down. I know it's elsewhere on the internet, but it was other folks like me that were using it for commentary. So I didn't have time to go on there and see if they did the whole thing or they segmented it out. And it may come up later, but there was a video on this that talked about how the Obama administration was obstructing justice in that investigation, along with Eric Holder, and that was a clear-cut case of obstruction of justice with the gun running scandal, the Fast and the Furious. And then I have liberal friends and acquaintances that say, well, there was no scandals during the Obama administration, and I point back to that one specifically because that was definitely a scandal that President Obama participated in a cover-up. Okay, they participated in a cover-up. Okay. I'm not going to get into a couple of these articles towards the end here. A Virginia mom says genital mutilation of little girls can help tame their sexuality. We must never tolerate this. Not in America, not anywhere. This is by Joshua Yasma from dailywire.com, posted on June 6th. And I won't get into it, but this a mom, says, well, we got to do this to these little girls to curtail their sexuality. And I read through the article. Nowhere in there was any responsibility for the man. And I'm coming to understand in Islamic circles, folks that take Islam seriously and want to live it seriously, the men take no responsibility for their lust. And they're lusting after women, not whatsoever. And they want to put the burden all on the women. Make them wear burqas, make them wear these full face, full body burqas you can't see anything from. They can't talk, they can't walk by themselves. All these different rules under Sharia law with women, and it just and what really sickens me is when they think it's okay that a male Muslim can marry an 8-year-old girl, a child bride. That bothers me to no end. It really does. So that'll be up on the link. City of Texas is furious it cannot just take a man's land who is rich enough to fight them. Now there's an update to the story on this video I showed you where this councilwoman was just beside herself that this man had enough money to fight them to put a water line. Now, you and I might think that this water line is like a regular water main, maybe 8 to 10 inches in diameter. They're talking about an 84-inch diameter water main that's bringing water into the city of Dallas. And it's actually, from what the story says here, it was actually going to be cutting across some lakefront properties and pretty much ruining the properties for the property owners, because you got an 84-inch, that's huge. You got to dig a really big ditch for that to bury it deep enough in order for it not to freeze, because in Dallas they do get some freezing temperatures. I don't know what the code is for burying it. Up here in central Pennsylvania, your water line's have to be 36 inches minimum buried to keep them below the frost line so they don't freeze in the wintertime. We're not talking about a little 8 to 10 inch pipe. We're talking about 84 inches. I'm 6'1", 72 inches. Okay, 73 inches, and I could still walk inside that pipe. That's how big that pipe is, and it's no wonder he didn't want it going through his property. And there are, from what I read in the story, and you can go read that link up there. From what I read in the story, there's alternate routes that they looked at that wasn't going to disturb these expensive properties. Okay, and the eminent domain, it's a pipe, folks. You can run around some obstacles with that pipe. And I said that when I shared the video with you. So there's an update on that in the links there. Okay. Oh, I have an article in there about infrastructure. I'm going to be doing some more research on this. This is from The Intercept by Lee Fang. Private toll operators salivate over Donald Trump's infrastructure plan. Evidently, and I haven't really dug into this that much because this cloud that's hanging over the administration with the Russia thing has most everything focused on that. They're talking about in this article about a public-private partnership with toll roads, and actually creating more toll roads, and I'm not for that at all. We've seen what happened to a public-private partnership with Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac, and how it lended to the housing bubble. Either, and this is something I'm trying to do some research on, if I can get some help with that from somebody out there in YouTube land or over Blog Talk Radio to email me and help me do this. I'm doing some research to find out how many millions or billions of dollars that are taken from the American citizen in federal gas tax, whether it's gasoline or diesel, and also the state's tack on that. How much is taken out for that? I am aware of some projects back when Fast Eddie Spendell was our governor, where he diverted $20 million out of the DOT fund to help build a building that the Department of Transportation was only going to occupy a couple floors. And the total cost of that building was like $50-60 million. So the DOT diverted funds that should have went to the highway. And this is a problem when you have all these bureaucracies set up. It diverts money away from the actual projects they need to be going to. And this is where, and there's some good work been done in libertarian circles, and just Google private roads or privatization of highways, and there's a book out, and you can get that in e-reader form for your Kindle or your laptop, whatever. I'd read a lot of things on my laptop, but you can get that, and they put out an argument about how all roads, even the road out in front of my house, this country road, can be privatized. And in the hands of a private industry, you wouldn't have this huge bureaucracy. The money that was collected in taxes from the state and federal level, which honestly, I know the interstate highway system was established by the federal government, but the states maintain it. So I still don't understand why we have a Department of Transportation at the federal level, because it's not an enumerated power, and they're diverting funds away and by having a huge bureaucracy. And now I could be wrong in this, and I haven't done a lot of research on this. The Department of Transportation could be set up because of the Commerce Clause. Okay, but I want to see that rationale. I really need to see that rationale. And I also have one more article in here. This is from from Common Cause. They set up this website, Country Over Party, and this is something we talk about on this show here about not being in lockstep with party. That I pledge allegiance to the flag, and I give I pledge to protect. I took an oath to protect the Constitution, and this is 10 steps to protect the American election from conflicts of interest, corruption, and foreign interference. And folks, you got to go over and read this. I might even hold this over for tomorrow and share it with you tomorrow on Free for All Friday, and let you. And I probably am going to have that for tomorrow also. It's ridiculous what these George Soros groups are putting forth, and it's totally biased. They don't talk anywhere in there about voter ID, and I took them to task for that on Facebook. Haven't heard back yet. But so you want to protect the election. You want to make the election process fair to everybody. Voter ID. Make sure we know who's voting, and if they're allowed to be on the voter roll. It really is. Well, folks, I see that we're running out of time and coming down to the end of the show. This has been the Dan Clements Show. I'm your host, Dan Clements. Remember, if you aim at nothing, hit it every time. Please come back tomorrow at 12 noon for Free for All Friday, and help me celebrate the end of the work week and going into another weekend. So we'll see you tomorrow at noon. Lord willing, God bless you all.
Thank you for using Blog Talk Radio. Goodbye.